It's a time for the package from China. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in, because in this video we're going to be doing a chit chat about the Trimui brick. I've been seeing a lot of, let's say, video thumbnails. I didn't really watch a lot of videos because I wanted to check it out myself. So when it comes to the Trimui, a lot of positivity around this. And you know, Trimui, I've been, let's say, checking out all kinds of different devices from theirs. And some of them, like the Pro, are absolutely amazing in certain ways. So it comes with a 3.2-inch display, an RGB lighting effect, stereo speakers, and an extra L&R key. So it's kind of interesting. You can even mod the thing, so maybe that will be fun to do that in the future. I have the white version, and as you can see over here, we have also a black color, and I think there's even like different shells out there now. However, let's take a close look inside of the box. So when you're going to be looking into, let's say, the device itself, the first thing that I actually noticed that this thing is really small, and I was actually expecting a little bit bigger of a handheld, so this is going to be an issue for some people. I think it is going to be absolutely an overall fun experience. But if you're going to be holding it, it's a little bit of the, let's say, the Neo stuff that we have checked out. I think the Neo was an absolutely great device, but was kind of tiny. But let's do a quick look at an analysis of the device later on. So we have an SD card. Some of the companies will give you the option to actually buy one of these. And what I love about some of the stores are giving you the SanDisk and not the cheap crap that gets corrupted out of, let's say, booting it up a couple of times. Over here, the toilet paper manual, like always, explaining how everything works. I think it's absolutely great. You know, they're giving you this because there's a lot of, let's say, confusing stuff going on by adding games to these devices. So what is absolutely cool is having not the buttons, or is it that having a cable that's just down there, but you can have the option to even modify it, to change it out when it comes to the buttons. So that's absolutely awesome. But starting off with the weight, 160 grams, and I can tell you that this tiny thing feels like a brick, and not in a bad way. It feels like a really nice quality product. Where I was really pleased with the Neo series, this is going to be maybe my new favorite one to play when it comes to pocket devices. So they're also using a piece of metal over here. I'm guessing they're using that for cooling the PCB. So another great thing they implemented is that nowadays with these devices, you can see there is a nice height difference when it comes to the back buttons. I'm not a big fan of back buttons at all, but if you're going to be playing, yeah, this is going to be so much easier to play. Another feature you have seen with the Pro version is that when it comes to, let's say, D-pad, we have these very nice micro switch D-pad. I am a big fan of it, simply because when it comes to the, let's say, the resistance, but also the travel, this is like super fast and very responsive. We have over the A, B, X, Y button. And I must say that I find this very, very comfortable. I'm going to be doing the wicked button test, like just doing this swiping. Man, this feels so nice. Oh, we can even make an ASMR video out of this. But beside that, we're having function buttons at the bottom over here, 2 speakers. At the bottom we're having the input for the micro SD card. We're having a tiny button for reset if something goes wrong. We can fully reset it. Over here the USB-C, an audio jack out, physical volume control. I'm very glad they keep doing this. And on top are nothing much. Having over here a slider. And then having over here the on-off switch that we can hold and actually booting up the device itself. And let's do a little bit of a chit chat. What are we getting when it comes to the software? I love these very cool front lit LED LEDs. You can actually see we're having all kinds of LEDs over there. That's the RGB stuff that they were talking about. Let's lower all of the, let's say, the lights, and you can see that the light up of this is just absolutely amazing. With the CrossMix OS, what you're getting with this particular SD card, this is going to be so much more, let's say, out of the box positive experience. So you can see they made all kinds of different collections. So let's go with the Sonic in here. Let's zoom in a little bit. You can see we're having all kinds of platforms. So in this way we can just easily go to the favorite games. So they also implement a tiny screenshot. It's not really noticeable because it's way too small. But in the end, it's actually something they put extra effort in. And let's check out what we're getting more. So Sega CD. And if you're going to pressing B, we're going back to the games, apps. And yeah, we do have like Moonlight for streaming. We can change out stuff. Some others, actually like some applications you don't really need if you're going to be just playing some games. So in here we're having recent, you can see the games I've been playing or what kind of folders I was opening up, favorites. That's one of the features I love about these devices, or for particularly when it comes to the firmware, because you can just slap in all of your favorite games and just go from there, so you don't need to scroll. Having the platforms, and this is one of the more appealing things, we have 10 freaking pages of different, let's say, platforms like handheld, consoles, and for me it's going to be all about the 8-bit, 60-bit stuff on this, but you can play even some Neo Geo if you want to. Having one big list, and you're pressing the button over here where you even have the option to search, and with the button I mean particularly the left one over here. So we can actually say we're going to be searching for Sonic because I love some Sonic. Okay, press start for enter. And that's it. Everything with Sonic in it, we can actually find it. You know, and that's one of the things that I find really convenient. You can just search through all of the different systems. Let me know what is your favorite system to play on these devices, because you do have option for PlayStation Portable, but yeah, let's be honest, this is not going to be the best overall experience. It's a simple reason, because these things are quite powerful nowadays, but not powerful enough to run everything when it comes to that. But let's do a little bit of an overview of a couple of games. So I already recently played some Street of Rage, this is the hacked version. So another thing I also noticed getting into the game itself, you can see it automatically, that's kind of cool. You can see it automatically jumps into the game. My last actually, or I wouldn't say save, but where I actually left. And that's one of the things I just find absolutely amazing. How about the audio? So what I love about it, I went for the front facing, let's say, speakers, and they're not like super loud. They overall sound quite nice when it comes to the mid and the high. There was no bass with these kind of speakers, but man, for me, this is just a really cool way to play. You know, so when it comes to the overall features, it's absolutely great. The D-pad, so part of me, I'm always like the big fan of the Sega Nomad, or do you say the Sega Nomad floating D-pad is also implemented when it comes to the, let's say, the other device of the Sega, but man, this D-pad with the micro switch click under is really comfortable. But nevertheless, when you're going to be playing some games on this device, it's going to be absolutely awesome. Yeah, and if you're going to be looking at all the other options, you have even advanced option, we're getting into retro R if you want to, but also you can even go into messing around with it when it comes to the net play. So there's so much actually stuff you can do with this. But this particular collection is quite extended when it comes to that. So we're getting into the list like this. We can actually boot up a game that we're going to be doing later on again. But let's say some of them even have extra folders. Let's see if the ports also have this. Nope. Then I notice with the Sega over here that we're having the different like folders, translations, others. But also if you want to go to the hack, you have all kinds of different hacks that you can actually play. So that's kind of cool when it comes to that. And you know, let's see if we can even boot it up when it comes to the Sega Trilogy. So all kinds of very cool games you can play. Fairly easy. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's an audio mod. Okay, that's indeed sounding better. I do wonder if they like ported something like this to the Sega 32X / like Sega CD combination. That would be cool. But when it comes to movement and powering, let's say doing the fighting moves, that's what I love about this D-pad too. It's like for a fighting game it's great, but if you're going to be playing some old school games. Okay, so let's take a close look at some other, let's say, game systems. So when it comes to Sega Master System, I'm not going to be afraid that it's not going to be working at all, because these games can be run on a freaking potato nowadays. Or your phone, actually. However, so all of these emulation, and I must say in particular when it comes to the really old school stuff, I think I'm going to be really enjoying this. The resolution of the screen is just perfect for these old school games, and I think this is going to be the more, let's say, enjoyable experience. And it's one of the games I was actually playing on my other Mio Mini and other devices. But if you're going to be playing fighting games, beat 'em ups, or adventure games, one of the things I just find really appealing to the device is the D-pad. I keep saying it throughout the video, but I am really excited about this. So moving on to some handheld gaming with the Game Gear Ninja Gaiden. Seeing it in its full glory on this beautiful display. I can really enjoy this. I also had like a modified Game Gear. That is one of the things you should absolutely do when having a Game Gear nowadays, because the original screen is just really horrible or not working at all. But out of the box, this experience with the brick, I completely understand why people were a massive fan of this, because this works so great when it comes to, let's say, the controls input, but also when it comes to just the overall experience. But you need to have this certain cross-mix OS, because this makes it absolutely worth, let's say, just playing, buying, playing, and have a lot of fun. Okay, I'm going to be removing the plastic, somehow I'm always keeping these things on, just to make sure that they don't scratch up. But okay, so getting into, let's say, some Sega Saturn, that makes it a little bit more interesting, because yeah, the old school stuff, that will run just fine. So resolution wise, with the screen itself, I think it's going to be absolutely fun to also play some PlayStation 1 and some Sega Saturn.
Sega Rally Championship.
So far so good. I don't exactly see how I can add those, let's say, frames per second to here. Just wanted to do a little bit of a gameplay. But so far I can hear and see the overall performance of Sega Saturn is not bad at all. And I think it's such an interesting thing to see how far they have become when it comes to these devices, that we have like these tiny devices that can play even Sega Saturn.
3, 2, 1.
So let's get in some gameplay. I love that blow off valve of the turbo. Oh! But playing this is so different. There's some weird things in the background over there when it comes to, let's say, loading of the stage, but besides that, everything seems to be working fine. Let's see if we also have the option for the quick load, quick save. Yep, we're going to be using Yaban Shinshiro. And this is going to be on the native resolution. You can see you can mess around with the settings. I can even try to see if I can configure it with showcasing the frames per second. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's see what we can see when it comes to, let's say, the frames per second. So it's not running on the full 60 frames per second, but when I was just playing, I personally didn't really notice it. So that's one thing that's actually fun to see. So yeah, we can actually play it not on full 60 frames per second, but if you don't see the numbers, I don't think it's not really noticeable or annoying. Let's get ready to rumble with some Sega Dreamcast. So what I love about the device itself, if you're not going to be using it for some time, it also dims the screen itself. And of course we can also do a little bit of a standby mode. Yep, you can also see how automatically ask you how it goes when it comes to the main menu, or at least the quick menu. So you can actually continue. But it's also very cool that we have the rumble function that is going to be communicating with the emulator. So we do have a rumble function with this particular game system. But over emulation performance of the Dreamcast, that works just fine. Just wanted to see. And the sliding button does anything. But what I like about this is that we can actually mess around with, let's say, the menu, and just fairly easy go out of the game like that. But it took some time, because you can actually hear that the game was still running on the background. But let's see what is actually on here more. But so far I've been testing it out, all kinds of different Sega Dreamcast games. Seems to be working fine. I think it's kind of cool that the LEDs also turn in a different color when you're getting into a different emulator. You know, those tiny things, that makes absolutely a very cool difference. So out of the box, so far, Sega Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, it's playable and works quite good when it comes to that. It feels like a massive difference in audio. Mr. Driller is such a cool game. And I got squashed already. But I think what's interesting, if you're going to be playing these beautiful color games, you can just see how beautiful the display itself is. How about the arcade part? So we have the button over here for the menu itself, so special menu. Pressing select over here we can add credits, because that's the select. Let's see if we can actually boot up the game. There we go. Oh, this game is so brutal when it comes to the gameplay itself. But overall, when you're going to be looking at, let's say, playing some retro emulation, I think this is such a cool thing. For the simple reason that the screen is the perfect resolution for these old school games. I'm very glad they went for this, let's say, overall, let's say, solutions nowadays. With the beautiful IPS panels. And emulation performance in here is no problem whatsoever. Somehow I keep pressing both buttons, but that's not, of course, not necessary. So where can we play all kinds of MAME games? I just want to do a quick look into some more demanding stuff, and that also runs perfectly. So I am going to be a massive fan of this D-pad. Particularly when it comes to, let's say, the micro switch underneath is very responsive. I do need to get used to it. But the simple reason because of the form factor. Because the D-pad itself is quite high, but has like a very nice curve to it. So out of the box, this thing is absolutely a great device for playing fighting games. So when I can play my fighting games, you know Wicked is happy. But if you're going to be playing some N64, this is going to be a challenge its own, for a simple reason because it's going to be a very difficult emulator to run on these, let's say, basic devices. So I think first of all we're going to be getting into the launch games. This is not going to be a problem whatsoever. I think it's still cool to see all kinds of different games running on here. But so let's do a little bit of a gameplay of the Diddy Kong Racing. This is personally my first game I have ever played on the N64. And I just love to play it now. Let's see, where did he map all of the buttons? There we go. This is one of those games that we're going to be needing the back buttons for. So far, so good. No problem there. Let's make a save and continue later on. Alright, and let's exit. Okay, that's a great example. So the menu or the title is completely messed up. Okay, you can see that it absolutely struggles, but let's get into the death race. Let's see how the game overall will work. It's a little bit messed up when it comes to the emulator. And this is exactly what I mean, you know. Okay, so we finally have this weird background has been removed. Let's take a close look at the frames per second. Ooh, that's a really weird thing going on in general. Hitting 60 frames per second, you can hear the audio is, yep, it's absolutely dipping. So yeah, I know it's great to see that we have N64 on this, but they should like filter all everything out and just go for, let's say, the launch titles. They work great, or at least most of them. But if you're getting into the more demanding stuff, yeah, that will give a lot of problems like this. I find it really interesting to see that some of the emulators where we do have an interesting resolution of the screen, that we do have a little bit of black borders around it to squeeze it in a certain form or actually a resolution. Just want to do a quick little bit of gameplay. So an important thing is like we're going to be needing the D-pad being more accurate, but of course not going to be a problem with this. So playing some old school N64 is going to be an issue with some of the games, but playing some arcade games, particularly when it comes to like the MAME, but also Neo Geo in here, this is running just absolutely great. So another system we can play for a very long time now is of course the PlayStation 1. So PlayStation 1, I can still remember with the Open Dingus devices a couple of years ago that we had the option to play all kinds of different games, but also a lot of problems, lagging. But now a native resolution, we can just play these games without any problem whatsoever. I think it's absolutely cool. And I do wonder, do we have the net play? I think it would be cool to have like a net play with multiple devices. We can play together or against each other and just play this way. PlayStation 1 is such a cool device. Call me crazy Rally 2 though. I've been playing this game a lot on the PC back in the days, and local area network, having like 4 PCs hooked up and just playing against each other. So what is kind of funny is that we're going to be having that squeaking of the tires of the car. Man, that sound is kind of annoying, but I mean, particularly when it comes to this device, because this has such good overall high-pitched speakers, it's getting annoying. So let's move this to a next level, or at least like the ultimate test, and that's going to be PlayStation Portable. So when it comes to PlayStation Portable, you can see having black bars on top and the bottom. And this is with a simple reason, because we're now having a completely like wrong display for playing PlayStation Portable. But also emulation performance wise, you know, running 50 frames. Let's see how it goes throughout the game. You don't need to want to try to play a freaking, say, God of War, because that is not going to be something you should play on there. You can see it stutters. So yeah, PlayStation Portable, you can actually enjoy it, but just keep it with the simple, like say the basic games. Where like the PlayStation Minis, they can run okay on this, but still we're having that problem when it comes to the resolution. But there are like different handhelds out there that can run PlayStation Portable just fine, but we're also going to be having a different price class. It's just insane to see what you can actually play with this tiny device, and I completely understand also why Trimui Brick isn't a very popular device nowadays, or at least a lot of people were positive around me about this device, but the simple reason because this is such a very cool, let's say, tiny quality feel device. So the metal plating is something that was really necessary, because this gets quite hot when it comes to that. Beautiful RGB lighting that change out throughout different emulators, rumble function, and if you're going to be looking into what you can actually play with this, yeah, this is absolutely nuts to see. You can even play Saturn and Dreamcast, but some of the systems like PlayStation Portable and N64 is going to be a hit or miss. I would personally play this a lot for, let's say, just 8-bit, 16-bit and some arcade stuff. But yeah, is this something you should pick up? That is something only you can decide. If you want to see an in-depth video, let me know in the comments, and it will be great to see you in the next video.